Oh, I forgot about that. I was just studying the factors that widen the development gap. These include environmental factors such as natural hazards. In LEDCs, they can't cope with natural hazards so much. We saw an example of this, Haiti, 2010. After their dreadful earthquake, they could not recover quite so quickly due to poor infrastructure in their country. Next we have political factors. If a country has an unstable government, there can be things like wars, revolt and corruption. A lot of money is spent on these things, which could be spent on furthering development in the country. Then we have the social factors, which include education. With higher literacy rates in the country, they can branch out their economy, have more variety of jobs, and in LEDCs there just simply isn't a high enough literacy rate to do this sort of thing, so they can't really move into service sectors which are quite profitable. Next we have the birth control schemes, such as the education of women and the availability of contraception. These we can lower the birth rate of the country, and if the country has lower birth rates, there's less dependency and there is more efficient family planning. In DC you just can't do this. Lastly, the economic factors. We have the production sector that each country is in. Most LEDCs sell cheap agricultural goods on the global market and don't make much money from this, whereas NEDCs sell more valuable manufactured goods or services, very profitable. Next we have trading barriers. In LEDCs they can't really join trading blocks, which means there are more trade barriers for them. So whenever they sell stuff to other countries, it's a lot more expensive due to tariffs, quotas, etc. And lastly, debt. This is a huge problem for LEDCs. They get lent money by organisations such as the World Trade Organization or the World Bank, and then can't pay back afterwards. We saw such an example in Senegal, which was funded by the World Bank to produce groundnuts, which was quite a specialty at the time. However, when other countries began producing groundnuts as well, the demand fell in Senegal and they were left scrambling to pay back their huge debt to the World Bank. These days, more money is spent on that debt and in education and healthcare combined, which are two hugely important factors to develop a country. Now I'm going to pass over to Matt, who's going to tell us a bit about how we might begin to close this development gap.
Okay, so there are two main ways in which you can close the development gap. These are trade and aid. Trade is effectively where richer countries will help these poorer countries by buying their exports, such as Senegalese groundnuts. And this is helped by things like trade liberalisation groups. So if LEDCs are initiated into trading blocks, such as parts of Eastern Europe being in the EU, it allows them to trade with a much wider variety of countries without having to pay tariffs and such like. On the other side of the spectrum, aid is very useful, as it means that the country doesn't have to work for the extra money. It's just given to them for their needs. Aid can be short-term, which is things like famine relief or just disease control, and it can also be long-term, so that will be money to spend on infrastructure such as roads, Two other methods, which are not so monumental, are debt abolition or debt reduction. For example, in Zambia, the debt was reduced by £4 billion to be spent on healthcare, so it's quite an effective method. Also, there is fair trade, which I'm sure you've heard about, which is effectively where farmers or other workers, such as artisans, in poorer countries can get a better deal for their work. Typical examples of this would be, for example, Cadbury, which pays the cocoa farmers more than they used to, and 10,000 villages, which helps artisans in countries like Vietnam to sell their work on the UK and US markets. And thank you for listening, and I hope you have a nice night.